Hey folks, we're back with another installment of Inspiral Gaming Weekly. As always, I'm joined by Robert Hodge.
Hey there.
Um, Last week we touched on the subject of artifacts with our items discussion, so I figured this week we could go a little bit deeper into the artifacts of Dimension Door. On that note, let's roll. Last week you mentioned gems and weapons as artifacts. Are there other types of artifacts in Dimension Door?
Yeah, actually, there's multiple subcategories of artifacts. The ones that we have in the game are we got gems, guns, masks, melee weapons, and trinkets.
Okay, can you tell me what makes the different classifications of artifacts unique?
So each item subtype actually functions differently in the game. Uh, Melee weapons and guns must be equipped in your hands to be able to use them. Masks, they don't actually go into your hands, they go into your face, as you would expect. To gain their powers, they got to be equipped to you. Gems, you kind of have to hold. You have to hold most of them to have power, but some of them have powers just by carrying them, either in your hand or your backpack. Trinkets, though, are more weird little things like charms and maybe even pieces of jewelry that are magical and sometimes cursed. But the biggest difference between all of these subcategories of artifacts are the actual abilities that they give the user.
Okay, so what I'm gathering from what you just said was that I cannot take a mask and bash a witch over the head with it to get its powers.
Likewise, you cannot put a gun on your face.
Are you sure?
I mean, successfully?
Okay, that's disappointing. I can try.
You can put it to your face,
Yeah.
but you can't put it and wear it on your face.
Can all of the artifacts be used by every guest, or will there be something similar to like a class requirement that other games might have?
So as of now, artifacts can be used by any guest. Some might have their own limitation, but it's not like all guns can only be used by this class or all trinkets can only be used by that class. The artifact itself, the very specific item, will say whether or not it can be used by a certain group of people in game. And usually, if that's the case, it's going to be based on stats, not are you this character or are you that character. It's going to be, do you have this much strength? Can you actually wield this? Are you worthy enough?
Okay, but in the future, have you considered making any guest-specific artifacts?
Yes, when I originally made the game, I actually had thought of that specifically, making basically like story items in a sense. But that's something that I want to leave for expansions to make
Okay.
it feel more in depth every time you add on to this game.
Okay, that's something to look forward to at least. Um, will all of the artifacts be present in each game, or will some be exclusive to particular scenarios then?
So all artifacts will actually be available throughout the game, any version of the game. Much like monsters, pretty much every content that's in all games that you have will be considered when randomizing which ones you get.
Okay. Um, on the other end of things, can the servants of the house interact with artifacts in any way?
Yeah, actually, very specific ones. So not all servants can actually hold anything. Some are not humanoid in shape. They're, aberrant of some sort, or they resemble some kind of animal, or some very just scary thing. And the ones that are more humanoid can actually hold items, and the specific servant itself it'll actually say which ones it can, what subtypes they can hold. So the ones that can hold certain items are the ones that can use those artifacts.
Cool. So, do the artifacts fit into the lore of Dimension Door, or are they just kind of only important for the gameplay they provide?
So they're important for both. gameplay, obviously, the players will experience the gameplay of the artifacts. They'll be using this item and be like, oh, cool, I just destroyed that person with this awesome artifact, like the Moonblade, for example, that we spoke about in the last episode.
Yeah.
Whereas the lore comes from Lysander's journal, and he comes across a lot of these trinkets and a lot of these gems and all these different artifacts. And he, in fact, might be considered who actually coined the names of them. Because it'll be written in there as this thing I found at first, and then he starts describing it and comes up with a name for it, and he just writes it in his journal. So it's equally as important in the lore as it is in gameplay. They go kind of hand in hand.
Okay, speaking of that, do these artifacts originate from the manor, or are they from the different dimensions that these monsters are from?
So, the thing about the manor, the mansion itself, is it's this construct that's in multiple universes. So, when Lysander goes through the mansion, he doesn't actually know whether this particular artifact is from the mansion, whomever previously owned it, or if it came from a different universe, from someone who also stumbled upon the mansion and just brought it in with them. Some of the items he actually takes. He's one of those people, that could have brought in these different artifacts. So there are certain ones that Lysander himself specifically brought in to the mansion, which the players will interact with.
Okay, so I wanted to ask this earlier, but I felt like we should kind of leave it for the end of the segment because I want to talk about the Solstice Mask, which is our artwork of the week. I figured probably could have asked about it earlier, but it fit better down here. The tagline alongside the Solstice Mask mentions the powers of the sun and the moon. Can you tell us a bit about the mask and what it does?
Yeah, so the Solstice Mask, we'll start with masks. When you wear them, they change you. They give you powers. They do specific things. Some are positive, some are negative. Specifically, the Solstice Mask, like it says, it gives you the power of the sun and the moon. And what does that translate to in the game? It has to do with fire and darkness. Whenever you're in a room that's on fire or in darkness, you are stronger. You deal more damage while you're wearing this mask. But not just that, but it kind of gives you this eerie power where you get to actually see rooms that are on fire or in darkness as if you were there. So every room that's in the mansion that is in darkness or on fire, and you can see inside all of them, like in specifically darkness you can't normally see, but you can with this mask on, including the room you're in. It also gives you the very scary ability to, if you pass a skill check, as an action, you can actually just teleport to one of those rooms.
Okay, how would this be displayed in a gameplay perspective? Would it be on like a mini map or something?
So there is a mini map in the game. You can see the 3x3 grid of the mansion and the different rooms. Normally, you're only limited to what your allies also see. So you can only see in your own room and whatever rooms that your allies are in. If they block their communication, you can't see. Now, let's say somebody who's in darkness, what happens normally is darkness cuts off communication completely. But the Solstice Mask allows you to see in that room, regardless of communication, as well as rooms that are on fire. So what you can do in game, you can just click on the mini map and you can click on the specific room, and that will basically shift your view to that room and you can see in there.
Okay, but you'd probably want to do this someplace safe so you don't get like murdered while you're looking in another room.
Well, it's a turn-based game, so if it's on your turn, it won't matter.
That makes sense. Oh yeah, I was gonna ask, what about if the fire is made of ice?
It's still considered fire, so the Solstice Mask can see the icy fire. Or is it fiery ice? No, it's icy fire, because It's considered fire.
And more onto that, so can you like chain your own artifacts together? Are you allowed to use more than one artifact at a time?
So, yeah, I mean, it just depends wholly on how many hand slots, your face slot, and your body slot you have open. You have those 4 slots: 2 hands, your body, and your face. Face is specifically reserved for masks. The body and the hands are, can be, there's more variation in what you can be wearing / holding. But yeah, you can be decked out with completely artifact stuff.
Okay, and then in the future we'll be able to duct tape moonblades to our feet, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
But only one, because there is only one in the game.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
each a moonblade and some other weapon.
Yeah. The Morning Star, actually, you could do that.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
I forgot we already talked about that one.
Yeah, so yeah, all artifacts in each session are unique. There is only one of them in the game. So if you find the Moonblade and I want it, but I don't know you have it, I will never get it, and I'll keep searching for it forever. And I won't know until you kill me with it, because that's what you do. That's what you do, Danny.
It is actually what I do. So could you maybe give us a tip on how a player might best use the Solstice Mask in a game?
Yes. So it does highly depend on your character. If your character has anything to do with fire or darkness, it'll be really helpful. If it doesn't, it's just nice to be able to see in those rooms. Vision is extremely important. So the Solstice Mask in and of itself is just a very useful artifact. But if you can combo it with other things, like the Moonblade, normally you can't see in darkness. But with the Solstice Mask on and the Moonblade in hand, you can see your enemies and destroy them. You deal significant extra damage both from the Moonblade and the Solstice Mask while in darkness.
One more thing, you mentioned skill checks when using masks. Is that a mask thing?
So skill checks are things that'll happen throughout the game. They'll apply to different things, specifically to masks. So most things that you equip, you generally just say, I equip it, and it just happens, and you have it in your hands or you have it on your body. Masks are different because these artifacts are extremely powerful and kind of scary to wield. It costs some of your sanity. If you fail a nerve check, is what it's called, you have to test your nerves to put it on or take it off. If you fail that, you lose sanity. If you pass it, you put it on and you take it off as if you could do anything else. So masks are stronger, but they're harder to wield, essentially.
Okay. And on that note, I think it's about time we head to our outro. So this week, our question of the week will be, if you could create an artifact, what would it be and what would it do? So, just tell us, would it be a mask? Would it be a gun? And then what kind of special ability would you like it to have? And we'll talk about that more next week. So thank you for listening. I've been Daniel.
And I've been Robert Hodge. But I might be Lysander.
Oh, that's very possible.
I mean, just because they haven't seen you and him in the same room doesn't mean you've seen me and him in the same room.
I don't think I've ever seen him, so...
Aha! All right.
All right, we'll catch you guys next week.
Yeah, thanks, guys.